Okay, so next in section 3, we're listening to a couple of people talk about their exam schedule. Okay, so let's listen along and you can watch me fill in the answers. Relatively straightforward. You should be able to hear the keywords as they go through the conversation, okay? So we'll go through, I'll fill them out, and then we can check in how we knew it was the answer.
Now listen carefully and answer questions from 21 to 25.
Hi, Jane. Our final exams start next week. How is your studying going?
Well, some questions in physics are confusing.
When is the physics exam?
Let me see. Is it scheduled on Monday morning?
My first exam is on Monday, but it is in the afternoon. What time is your physics exam?
Yes, that's my first exam too. It starts at 10 o'clock and will take 2 hours. But I can arrive at school earlier because the bus gets to school at 7:15.
Your first test will finish at least by lunchtime, but my history test will start after lunch. It will continue for 3 hours. Hey, Nancy, do you have a test on Monday?
No, my first test is scheduled on Tuesday. I have an extra day to study.
What subject is that?
It is the statistics exam.
Do you feel confident about it?
Statistics is my favorite subject, so I'm not worried about the result. But I'm really afraid of chemistry. I need more study to conquer the subject. Actually, most parts of the class were hard to comprehend.
Chemistry is going to be hard. I find some formulas particularly hard to recall. By the way, where does the statistics exam happen? I lost the note I wrote down.
It is in room 76. That's one of the rooms where accounting classes occur normally.
Thanks for that. Anyway, David, did you study much?
Not much. Last night I was just up until 11 p.m. The subject I'm most worried about is Chinese. It is very hard to remember words. They look and sound strange.
Okay, so that was them talking about the different exams. That was relatively straightforward. The only slightly confusing bit is about the first exam between David and Jane, because David says, when is the physics exam? And Jane says it's scheduled on Monday morning. And then David says, my first exam is on Monday, but it is in the afternoon. What time is your physics exam? And then Jane says, yes, that's my first exam too. Okay. So David's go over that again, because they're trying to catch you out with being confusing. Okay, so David says, my first exam is on Monday, but it's in the afternoon. What time is your physics exam? So his final questions is about physics. And then Jane says, yes, that's my first exam too. Okay, so it could be confusing to think that David's first exam is history, but it's not. Okay, so that's how we know her first exam is physics. And then the rest of it is relatively straightforward. They talk about statistics, but she's not worried about it. Chemistry, that's really hard. And then David says he finds Chinese very hard. Okay, so that was relatively simple, relatively straightforward. And you should have been able to hear clearly when they mention the keywords from the questions. Okay, so let's move on to questions 26 to 30. Okay, so again, let's take a look through the question. When is the Japanese remedial class scheduled to happen? So hopefully when you should have taken some time to listen through to that. And again, this conversation is quite straightforward and they highlight when they're going to give you the answers to you. So they're talking about the remedial class. So they're talking about Japanese. So David said, Jane, you're taking Japanese. When is the remedial class? It is on Thursday. Okay, so we should have Thursday as your answer. And then every Thursday, Jane has to work at the cafe. David asks her, how about asking to switch your hours? And then David says, you're taking economics. Okay, so what class is she currently taking? Okay, although again, that's slightly confusing because she's taking Japanese and she's taking economics and she's taking physics as well. So, I mean, they want you to say economics because that's what they talk about next. But the answer to this could be Japanese, could be economics, or could be physics. It could be any of those. She's taking all of them, but they want you to write down economics, and hopefully that's what you did. The most logical answer. Then what time is David supposed to arrive for the Friday remedial class? David says it starts at 4 o'clock on Friday. Okay, so we should have written down 4 o'clock. Okay, and then we get to question 29, which is what is another subject Jane is going to take for her remedial class? And so she says, I really need that physics class. Okay, so you should have put the answer physics. And then she asks for the information about it. And then David tells her you can go at either 5 p.m. or 6:30, but it's asking when will Jane take it. So Jane says the 5 o'clock class doesn't suit her because she's already economics. So she needs to go at 6:30. Okay, so relatively straightforward. The conversation isn't really very clear about question 27, but they want you to put down economics because that's the next subject that comes up in the conversation. Okay, so hopefully that one shouldn't have been too difficult, and then we'll move on to section 4, which is usually the more challenging section of the listening